Hello, and welcome to the LeastHaunted podcast, where science, skepticism, anthropology, and humor meet to discuss all things haunting, spectral, spooky, paranormal, and sometimes just the plain stupid. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me, as almost always, is...
Garth. How's it going, Cody?
It's going pretty good, Garth. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Life is good.
Let's do a spooky check. Garth, anything spooky happened to you in your life recently? Any updates?
So, a couple months ago, I installed an LED dimmable light in my bathroom, and it would always stay a little bit on when I would flip the switch to turn it off. I guess there's like a certain threshold of power, and there was just enough little bit going in that it would be dim.
Uh-huh.
And so it would never be off all the way. It would either be dim or normal brightness. And about 2 days ago, now that when I switch it off, it goes off all the way. That's the spookiest thing I can think of in my life. You asked. Hey, that's all I got. How about you, Cody? Do you have anything spooky?
I'm sorry, just thinking like, you know, the bathroom ghost, it's trying to communicate to you. It's bringing ultimate darkness. Now you have to go stand in the dark bathroom and look in the mirror, and maybe it'll communicate with you.
Is that it? I was thinking maybe if it turns on and off, I should document like when it goes up and down, and maybe it's like Morse code stretched out over months of dimmability.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should stand in the dark bathroom now. It's trying to tell me something.
Your bathroom is haunted.
How about you? Yeah, anything spooky in your life, Cody?
I broke quarantine on Monday.
Did you?
And yesterday. I had to.
What'd you do? What happened?
Well, I had to go get a moving permit so I could take my truck to get smogged.
So how did it feel to be out in the world after being... Did everything look strange?
It was weird, man.
Because, just thinking about the brain and acclimating to certain surroundings, it's probably like when somebody leaves a prison or something. Like, suddenly...
Driving was weird.
Yeah.
Especially when I got on the highway and was traveling faster than I had in 3 months.
Yeah.
Like in 3 months I haven't gone faster than a walking pace, and suddenly I'm like 65, like holy shit.
Whoa.
Warp speed. In fact, I think I was driving like below the speed limit the entire time. I was just like I gotta say that just after 80 days or 80 plus days, a true double quarantine of isolation.
Wow.
Suddenly being surrounded by all these people who are A, not taking social distancing seriously, and B, just not wearing masks, almost gave me a panic attack. It was really stressful.
Well, you've been so cautious and so careful about every little thing, and suddenly it's all just getting thrown out the window by people being casual. Well, and I think the thing is, now that quarantine is starting to lift a little bit, everybody's acting like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going back to normal. It's like it's all or nothing. And I predict in about 3 weeks, probably about the time this episode comes out, we'll be right back into quarantine. There's going to be a giant spike because no one's taking it seriously. We'll see, though. We can edit this out if that turns out not to be the case.
I am writing down your prediction here, Garth. 3 weeks. This is the 10th of June today when we're recording this.
I predict that within 1 month, on the 10th of July, there will be stricter regulations, and we might be back to where we were a month ago. That's my prediction.
All right. Well, okay. I am writing down.
He's doing it.
Right
people,
now.
We're FaceTiming right now, and I can see him writing it down on a little piece of paper. Oh, now Cody's folding it.
And I am putting this paper into a special box that will be opened in 3 weeks' time.
Excellent. Make it 1 month. I think there might be a bit more lag time for the spike.
I mean, we could make it maybe 200 years.
There you go. Yeah, put it in. Let's make sure we agree on it now.
Later on in today's episode, my little prophecy box will make a little bit more sense. We'll revisit the prophecy box.
Oh, this was you're burying a little lead in the future. That's good.
Yeah.
Man, Cody's a tactician. You're so good at storytelling.
Well, speaking of storytelling, I think it's time we get into today's story.
What is our topic today, Mr. I was going to say Mr. Cody. What is today's topic today, Mr. Franks?
Well, is anybody who has clicked on this has by now seen the title. Today's topic is Psychic Wars, the fight for England's paranormal soul.
All right.
Yeah, so I got to start off, actually, before we even start the whole story, by saying that today's topic is very in depth. There's lots of information and conflicting accounts of all this. I'm doing my best, and I understand that there's a lot of things that I have either overlooked or maybe omitted, not always intentionally. It just this is something that could really, I think, be like even a Netflix series or an Amazon Prime original maybe. There's a lot of ins and outs.
Wow, this could be the next Wild Wild Country or Tiger King, just like a sprawling like 8-part documentary.
I was thinking more like a dramatized actual like show.
Oh, you would do it. Oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
With all the power of BBC level acting.
So this is about Harry Price, right? What actor would you have play Harry Price, and if you could pick anybody?
Oh man, that actually, holy crap! Now that you just mentioned that, you put me on the spot because like,
I'm sorry, we.
no, I've been looking at the guy for like.
What? Actually, I'll look him up now. I actually don't even know what he looks like. All you people at home will be able to see it on Instagram. We'll have a picture of him up.
Yeah, so this portrait of Harry Price. I mean, he's a tall guy. He's a lanky fellow. He kind of has a Lurch vibe going on in this picture I'm looking at.
Well, he's quite a bit older in most of these photos, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe Benedict Cumberbatch.
Maybe.
He doesn't really look that much like him, though. Hold on. Let's think about this.
I mean, there was a movie that was made about him in 2015, so I don't know whoever they got to play him there. But
you know what? I recognize this guy. There's a photo of him with a pipe, and I had a book about witches and the occult, and this photo was in that book. That's him.
Yep, Harry Price. So we're welcoming back to the show, as we've said, Harry Price. Who we had previously mentioned in episode 1, when a very trustworthy mongoose had said about Harry Price that he was, quote, the man who puts the kibosh on the spirits.
That's right. I remember Harry Price. And I think at the time you said Harry Price deserves his own episode.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are.
Okay.
Delivering as promised, the episode about Harry Price.
So something that I was kind of unaware of when I began researching this topic, and as I've already alluded to by saying that it could be a whole series, was actually like how controversial of a figure that Harry Price was and continues to be in the field of psychical research. I'll use that term throughout the episode, psychical research.
Is that right? Is that the way you conjugate? Not psychic research, it's called psychical research? Huh.
As we are going to learn about the different sides, the different armies in these psychic wars, you will see that psychical is the term that they apply to themselves.
Interesting.
Shorthand, they just say psi, PSI, is not pounds per square inch. In this context, they say psi as a shorthand for any kind of paranormal or psychic type event.
Interesting. Okay.
So Harry Price, he has a lot of proponents, but he has just as many, if not more, detractors and critics. And as we shall see, the debate between Price and his enemies would eventually lead to a psychic arms race and paranormal battle for domination of the ghosts of not just England, but possibly the rest of the world. So, our story begins. Harry Price was born in Red Lion Square in London on January 17th, 1881, although he would sometimes imply that he was actually born and raised in Shropshire, which is in the West Midlands of England, and this was possibly done as a way of gaining acceptance with higher classes. So, Red Lion Square, where he was born, at one time was very fashionable in London, and it was seen as like kind of where all the upper crust would go and hang out. By the 1820s, it had gained a reputation for becoming seedy and belonging to lower classes. I think Times Square in like the 1980s.
Okay. So this place was just full of like strip clubs and peep shows.
Crime-ridden, and it had a reputation. In fact, in 1862, the novelist Anthony Trollope wrote a novel called Orley Farm, in which he makes a note that although one of his characters is from Red Lion Square, the readers should not judge that person too much because he assures them that he is still perfectly respectable.
That says something about the way that I can kind of see why he would change where he was born when he told people, because apparently that made a big difference back then.
Yeah, and quick side note, that novel, Orley Farm, the overall theme of the book actually kind of is fitting for what we're going to be talking about, because the theme is about personal judgment versus group judgment, with one character espousing that one must allow themselves to be governed by the united wisdom of others, rather than judge everything by their own senses and criteria.
Wow.
Something that I think we'll find that Harry Price and his opponents all could have taken to heart. Okay, so as we're kind of implying here, or alluding, classism is something that was a trouble and also would continue to plague him his whole life. Although he never outright said that he was from Shropshire, it seems that he kind of made implications that that's where he spent his youth. Some of his critics have also said that, along with that, he lied about what his father did for a living, claiming that he had said his father was like a high-ranking person at a paper company or something like that. But what Harry Price had actually said was that his father was intimately connected to the paper industry, which was true because his dad was a paper salesman. So he didn't really lie. It's all about how you present it, right?
That makes sense, yeah. Well, the little I understand about, like, Victorian England, people paid a lot of attention to where how you were brought up and, you know, the class you were raised in, so I'm sure he'd put whatever spin he could on it, yeah.
And something I think I just realized is that the year that Harry Price was born also happens to be the year that the ghost hoaxes begin in Australia.
Oh, wow.
We talked about.
Oh, yeah. In the clowning, that's right. Interesting.
Which is kind of fitting because he himself would dedicate most of his life to trying to expose hoaxes. So, just those weird little cosmic connections. Something that he probably would have read really deeply into. So as a teen, Price would take an interest in writing and drama, and along with co-founding the Carlton Dramatic Society, which is still in operation in Wimbledon, he authored a few original plays, including one about a poltergeist. After leaving his primary school in 1897, he got into various different professions, mostly based around sales, kind of like his father, who was a salesman. He marketed a medicine for foot-rotten sheep.
Did you say foot-rotten sheep?
I guess needs some explanation.
Sorry, I totally distracted you. I couldn't let that go.
No, you can't. It's good that you called it out, because I take for granted that most people don't know anything about sheep. I actually personally went to preschool on a sheep ranch.
Oh.
And so I'm kind of aware of sheep.
Do sheep get rotten feet a lot?
Yeah, foot rot is a thing that can happen to sheep because, you know, they're out in those muddy pastures and stuff.
Oh.
There's a lot of rot that happens on sheep. It's kind of gross.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah, real problem. Also, there's foot rot in other livestock, too. It's just a livestock issue. So, yeah, he marketed a medicine for foot rot in sheep. And he had a partnership called Creasy and Price, which sold a variety of adhesives and glues. He also spent some time as an amateur photographer and started a business taking publicity shots of local storefronts so they could put those in the paper as advertisements.
Oh, cool.
So he's already kind of dipping his toe into, like, marketing in a way.
Following in his father's footsteps.
And it would be something that, you know, throughout his life, he would be really skilled at how to market himself and realize the importance of marketing and selling yourself. In 1898, he started attending spiritualist meetings and took part in his very first seance. We've mentioned spiritualism a few times before, and I keep alluding, just like I promised there'd be a Harry Price episode, I promise that there will be a spiritualism episode at some point, because spiritualism was this fad that caught on in like the late 1800s. It's what led to seances and the proliferation of mediums, and a lot of things that are even to this day held as like core beliefs of paranormal research began in spiritualism. And just to kind of spoil it all, it was a hoax. Like, the people who started spiritualism were exposed as frauds themselves, so it's all based on a hoax. Although one could probably make the argument that there might have been good ideas that came out of it, so you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater type approach, because that's true of a lot of sciences. I mean, even as an anthropologist, a lot of early anthropology was extremely racist and can't really be justified, but at the same time, there were breakthroughs in ways we think about things and approach culture and examine and investigate that came about because of those things, so it's kind of this weird...
Yeah, I think a lot of the early days of a lot of sciences have that, where they were going in the wrong direction and had bad values, but also discovered things that were the foundation of more enlightened thinking. So, yeah, Try not to judge history too harshly, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, like chemistry came from, alchemy, so...
Yeah, and on and on and on. Pretty much every kind of science is a little bit like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, spiritualism is going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to that. That's a very fascinating topic.
So I need to break in with another note at this point. His biography becomes a bit murky going forward because some of the biographies written about him were written by his critics and professional enemies. So some of the main sources that people have available to read about Harry Price were written by people who actively despised him. So it makes it kind of problematic. And then the other half of the biographies are written by people who are big fans and champions of his cause. So it's really hard to find what isn't biased.
Yeah. He sounds like a very polarizing figure.
Yeah, so I just want to put that in here as I go forward. I'm going to keep bringing that up, that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of ins and outs and what have you.
Very complicated case, Maud. A lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, and a lot of strands to keep in my head, man.
So Price gained some notoriety in the press for the first time shortly after his 18th birthday in 1899 for experiments that he was performing with space telegraphy.
What's that?
So telegraphy or telegraphy is the practice of sending visual messages across long distances. A telegraph transmits written speech electronically, but at the end it is converted back into some kind of text, right? So it is actually transmitting something visual because in the end something has to be written or read. So it counts as that's why it's telegraph. Graphics and tele.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see what you're saying, yeah.
So a semaphore uses flags, and that is a telegraph. But if it was just audio, it's not. It'd be a telephone, right?
Yeah, until someone transcribes it, then nothing's being graphed. Got it, yeah.
So Price decided that he was going to start doing these experiments, and he really wanted to send a visual thing through space. And so he designed and built his own equipment and set up a transmitter and a receiver. The transmitter was on the aptly named Telegraph Hill, where there already were a bunch of telegraph things happening. And then he claimed that he actually did transfer an electric spark that was then received and then recorded on a glass photographic plate.
Oh, so he's trying to literally project an image through radio waves?
Pretty much, but this is before, I think this actually was, just after Marconi had begun messing with his radio experiments. Actually, at this time, there were a lot of people doing experiments in telegraphy. It was kind of a hot issue. It was the fad at the time. So you had all kinds of experiments with wireless transmissions. In fact, a few years earlier, actually I think a couple decades earlier, Edison had already devised a way for telegraphs on moving trains to communicate with the wires that ran parallel to the train tracks.
Wow.
So that you could receive and send telegraphs from a moving train. So that was already happening. And then, like I said, 1894, Marconi starts messing with radio. Although Price's critics claim that he faked the whole thing because they say, there was nobody witnessing it. It was just a press release that he had written himself.
Oh, okay.
And note that he designed his own equipment. I forgot to mention that after he left primary education, he began taking night classes at Goldsmiths College on a whole bunch of topics such as photography, chemistry, engineering, a whole bunch of other sciences. He just wanted to learn as much about everything. But because he was doing this at night school, people would often minimalize his expertise or his knowledge as if it was lesser than somebody who had gone to, say, Oxford or Cambridge.
I see.
Kind of like how a lot of people look down their noses at community college.
Yeah, or online colleges, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly, like an online college. So that was something else that would plague him. So, of course, they're like, he doesn't even know what he's doing.
What are your credentials? Oh, you did night school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gotcha.
At this time, other interests of Harry Price was numismatics. Do you know numismatics?
No, I've never heard of it.
Numismatics is coin collecting or currency collecting.
Oh, I actually have done that before. Numismatics. And so he kind of got into that, and he was elected curator of numismatics to the Ripon Naturalists Club and Scientific Literary Association in 1904.
He wrote a few articles on the subject and like scholarly journal type stuff on it.
On coin collecting?
On coin collecting.
For the Naturalist Club. I guess they have a very broad definition of naturalism. That's interesting.
It's the Naturalist Club and Scientific Literary Association. So.
Okay.
It's a science.
I guess it's sort of artifact collecting, like history collecting. Interesting.
Yep, and hand in hand with that, he also picked up an interest in archaeology. And so he got into amateur archaeology and participated in a few digs. And he seemed to have a knack for locating what they called clean antiques. Although there was no further explanation of what that meant. And it was actually brought up in it's in quotes, and it was brought up in one of the criticisms of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it seems to be like they're trying to imply that, like, when they say clean, it means they don't actually have a background. They come out of nowhere. In archaeology, the provenance of an item is very important.
What does provenance mean?
Provenance is knowing the exact, like, you can trace every step of this object's location in time and space. So provenance is recording and knowing where it was when it was. And that's very important for recording the context, because if you were to take a random artifact out of its context and say like it's on the black market, right? We'll say there's like a funerary jar, a canopic jar or something like that from Egypt, and it shows up in the black market. There's no way of knowing where it came from, where it was found, or its relative context to its surroundings.
It doesn't have any paperwork with it.
And because of that, it has no value. It has some value, but it really doesn't in building up a bigger picture, because it's just an object out of context. It's an object in space.
I can understand that, yeah.
It's just an object. Doesn't mean what you think.
It has no meaning.
So he was searching for this. He wanted clean artifacts that had no context?
No, it seems that his critics were saying that everything that he was finding, because he was finding things that were seemingly very amazing, these were items that were clean, as that they did not have provenance or a context.
I see.
So he could have just been making them or getting them from anywhere and making up stories. In fact, one of the items that he found and kept in his collection was a silver ingot that seemed to have a stamp on it that implied that it had been minted during the reign of the last Roman emperor. Which would also be kind of weird to find that in England, because, the Romans had actually abandoned England before the last Roman emperor.
Well, and if this one kid is finding all of these things, I mean, that's a little suspicious right then. Like, how do you end up keep finding all these things? Like, does he have stories for each one? Like, oh, I found this one digging in the backyard. I mean, it's strange.
With the silver ingot, it was kind of hard. The way it was written, it could have been either that he had found it, or when they say found, it might have been that actually he had found it in the possession of somebody else who had passed it off to him. But then later analysis of this silver ingot showed that it actually was a very poor copy of one that was on display in the Tower of London.
Oh.
Yeah.
This guy's losing credibility fast. Okay.
And it was made out of base metals. It wasn't even silver.
Wow.
But whether or not he actually knew that, or had because we can give him the benefit of the doubt to say okay, maybe somebody had provided it to him and given him the story that it was real, and he just took that at face value.
Oh yeah, I suppose could be.
It's not really justification. I mean, you should know better than that. Don't take it face value.
Yeah, it still doesn't reflect very well on him that he either made it up or he was easily fooled. So yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the Wikipedia article on Price heavily implies and just outright states that he purposely perpetrated this hoax, that he'd done it all maliciously. However,
probably the citation is from an article by one of his enemies.
Exactly. And then then you go to the other biographies, they don't make any mention of this ingot. All they say is like a footnote that says, Price was an amateur archaeologist.
Got it. Everybody's got their angle.
In 1906, Harry Price married Constance Knight, the daughter of an affluent family and the beneficiary of a hefty trust fund left over from her grandfather's successful perfume business.
Constance is one of those names you never hear anymore. Can't imagine why.
It's real pretty.
Yeah, it's nice. What would be short for what would be the nickname from Constance? Stanny?
Connie?
Yeah, Connie'd be better, yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that is where Connie's...
Actually, now that I think about it, I can't think of what else Connie would be.
Unless you're a King of the Hill fan.
Con Jr.!
So it sounds like he married into some money, so now he can expand his many hobbies.
Yeah, detractors like to claim that Harry was leeching off his wife's wealth to fund his exploits and experimentations with the paranormal. However, her own family at the time objected to such claims, and some more amiable researchers have also rejected the claim that Price used Constance trust fund money for his own gain. In fact, it seems that if anything, Price was always an enterprising businessman who could see opportunities for self-promotion, and he just kind of knew how to play the game, so he actually didn't rely on her money that much. He was able to promote himself, at least later on. But yeah, early on, he definitely was using some of her money for some of his stuff.
Well, I mean, as long as she was cool with it, good for him.
I guess that's what it comes down to. Yeah, if she's passionate about what he's passionate about and they're in love, why wouldn't she?
Yeah, then you take advantage of the hand you're dealt in the situation and make the most of it. Yeah.
They would be married until he died in 1948. So they were married, they were together the rest of his life.
There you go.
And it was after he and Constance settled down on a sizable estate upon the River Arun. It's in Pulborough, in Sussex. And it's when they settled down on this estate that he would throw himself into a new hobby that would set him on the path he would follow for much of the rest of his life. Harry Price became a big fan of magic.
Oh, excellent. Now, is he contemporaneous with Harry Houdini?
He is.
Okay, cool.
I thought you were going to make the obvious joke of he was playing Magic cards. Magic the Gathering.
He invented Magic the Gathering.
As a teen, he had witnessed several psychics and conjurers at various fairs and had developed an interest in their methods and tricks. But now with a home of his own and some income, he began collecting a vast library of books about magic, conjuration, prestidigitation, which is sleight of hand, and psychic phenomena. He wanted to know all the secrets of magicians and other psychics. And through this research, Harry became a skilled sleight of handist or prestidigitator and a magician in his own right. And he would use these skills for the rest of his life for both exposing frauds or, if you're one of his critics, hoaxing.
Oh, so he seems to have done either. Interesting.
He has the skills.
All I know about him is that he went exploring Jeff the Mongoose, so...
Right.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear. It sounds like so is he actually doing these things, or he's also looking into it? It sounds like he's the guy you call to see if it's a real ghost. Is that sort of his business?
He hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Oh,
He will, but he hasn't gotten there yet. Right now he's just kind of dabbling. And he's continuing to attend spiritualist meetings and private seances, including a meeting at the Alhambra Music Hall in Leicester Square, held by the American husband and wife spiritualist team of the Thompsons in 1910. At this point in time, spiritualist mediums were becoming international celebrities.
Wow.
Well, I guess we had a kind of brief flare-up of that, in the early aughts with, like...
Yeah, there were like daytime TV shows with people talking to the dead relatives and things like that.
Who's that guy on South Park? You know, the biggest douche in the universe.
Oh God, that's
John Edwards?
Was that his name? No, that was the presidential candidate. It was some other guy.
And the winner for biggest douche in the universe is... It's John Edward, Milky Way Galaxy, Planet Earth!
Come on now!
You know what? Maybe we shouldn't remember his name. Fuck him.
Fuck him.
Yeah, I remember that episode. Yeah, that seems to have been a thing about 15 years ago, I feel like. 20 years ago.
And it was a big thing, 100 plus years ago. So then Harry and Constance went on vacation to France for a while, and they were in Paris at the outbreak of World War I.
Oh.
Yeah, it led to a harrowing escape from France and back to England, during which he witnessed firsthand the execution of a supposed German spy.
Wow.
And it was on a train that, I guess the deal was that the train, the guy had put a bomb on the tracks, so was going to try to derail the train, but they thwarted it. And meanwhile, Harry Price is on this train, so he's like caught up in this whole thing.
Whoa.
Right? But the whole time, he's actually thinking about how he wants to found a research institute to investigate and authenticate instances of genuine psychic phenomena. So here he is as all this stuff is going on, seeing people get executed, and he's like, I should start an institute.
This is his responding to the crises of the times. You know what?
But at this point, it's just a little idea that he's having, tossing around. World War I breaks out, and he's already in his 30s, and he has a minor heart condition. So he's turned down when he enlists for military service. He wants to join the Royal Flying Corps. And he offers his assistance to them with his photographic expertise and offers to develop colored filters that they could use for aerial photography of battlefields.
Wow.
But they also don't take him up on that offer. He ends up spending the duration of the war manufacturing explosive fuse mechanisms in his own home workshop. They give him the supplies, and he starts building them. And then later on, towards the end of the war, he is a night shift supervisor at a factory making detonator parts for hand grenades.
Oh, okay.
This brings us to 1920, which is the year that Harry Price is elected a member of the Society for Psychical Research. Now, we're going to take some time to look at the Society for Psychical Research, or the SPR. And to do so, Garth, why don't you hop on the backwards carousel of time with me?
Oh, are we getting on the backwards carousel of time? All right, let's look at the foundation of the... What's it called again? The Society of Psychical Research.
You can call it the SPR. Everybody does.
Let's jump on this backwards carousel of time and look at the foundation of the SPR. Oh, wow, Cody, where are we?
All right, we get off our carousel, and we find ourselves a little dizzy, and in the year 1882.
Oh, yeah, that feels about right. I can smell the lack of pollutants in the air. Yeah, this feels like about 1882.
The lack of pollutants?
Except for coal.
Yeah, it's coal. It's
I retract that. I'm sorry. The hole in the ozone isn't here yet, but there's a lot of coal dust in the air. Yeah.
The year is 1882. Harry Price is 1 year old, and somewhere in England, the pepper moth is freaking out about whether or not it should be gray or white. Trust me, some people get that reference.
That is downright esoteric.
I got it right away.
You shut your mouth!
So it's the height of the spiritualism craze still. And there's a collection of like-minded intellectuals who come together under the aim of cataloging and evaluating claims of various psychical phenomenon, and then to use the strictest scientific methodology to study said phenomena without any corporate bias.
All right. I like their approach here. So they're true believers, but they're not gonna just go along with anything. They wanna really get data on this, and they're gonna be scrupulous in their pursuit of the evidence and the facts.
Yeah, in short, they are looking to create a whole new science from the ground up. Thus, the Society for Psychical Research is formed in 1883.
Aha.
The early members included philosophers, professors, mathematicians, physicists, classical scholars, and even a future Prime Minister of England, Arthur Balfour. Rich folk.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing rich people do in their spare time. Let's form a society to do psychical research studies. Right on. Good for them. I'd like to find out what they found out.
It's an extant organization. It still exists. So I want to be careful as I talk about them.
Oh yeah, no, we're making fun of them from a long time ago. I'm sure the people who are there now are all totally cool.
But actually, if you go to their website and you read their history, it does make note that these are all like rich people, but it then paints it as a positive thing, like, oh, but the fact that they were so wealthy allowed them the luxury of funding their research and doing all this stuff, this work that had to be done.
It had to be done. This was the best use of their time and resources.
So the various founders, they all shared a common interest in the growing fad of spiritualism, mesmerism. You know mesmerism?
I would guess hanging a watch in front of somebody's eyes and getting them to do your bidding. Like, hypnotism is mesmerism, right?
Yeah, hypnotism. And it's because it was founded by a dude named Mesmer.
No way, really?
We'll talk about him some other time. But yeah,
Wow.
Mesmer.
Huh.
So mesmerism, also clairvoyance, so, psychic stuff.
Yeah.
And having sat through many, many seances, readings, and other psychic sittings, they all became very adept at identifying frauds and how they achieved their various tricks. But they still believed. They were still true believers.
Greetings, true believers.
So they decided the best way to prove that they weren't, crackpots was to find and prove real phenomenon. And to do so, they would have to establish strict scientific frameworks and guidelines, and that their findings would need to be published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, which they started. They founded the Journal of the Society for Psychical Research. They also had a magazine called Paranormal Review, and Paranormal Review is still around.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an old institution. So did they discover seemingly true things pretty quickly, or?
We'll get into that. They kind of get going the ball starts rolling pretty quick.
Okay.
Organizationally, it was composed of several committees, each one focusing on a specific area of research. So this is from the 1883 Statement of Aims and Objectives of the SPR. This was their official kind of screed that they gave out that stated what they were for. And it says, quote, "The aim of the society will be to approach these various problems without prejudice or prepossession of any kind, and in the same spirit of exact and unimpassioned inquiry which has enabled science to solve so many problems, once not less obscure nor less hotly debated. The founders of the society fully recognize the exceptional difficulties which surround this branch of research, but they nevertheless hope that by patient and systematic effort some results of permanent value may be attained. To prevent misconception, it is here expressly stated that membership of the society does not imply the acceptance of any particular explanation of the phenomena investigated, nor any belief as to the operation in the physical world of forces other than those recognized by physical science."
Sounds good to me. I hope they can live up to it.
And then, yeah, they set out the various committees. So there were like 6 of them. There was one that was to examine the nature and extent of any influence which may be exerted by one mind upon the other. You know, kind of like telekinetic influences.
That's telekinesis, Kyle!
A committee for the study of hypnotism and forms of so-called mesmeric trance and clairvoyance and other allied phenomena. There's one that it relies on you knowing who another person is in his research. So it was kind of like an insider's club, I'm guessing. It was actually, it seems to be about exploring the possibility of extrasensory organs.
Okay, that's what the pancreas is for. Or no, wait, we know what that is. That produces insulin. That's what what's the thing everybody always gets removed because, the appendix. Maybe the appendix is a organ that is clairvoyant.
It was basically to see if like there was extra senses beyond what our regular organs could find. And then there was one that was just investigating reports and collecting testimony of apparitions of people at the moment of death. Or other disturbances of houses reputed to be haunted. So that's the ghost branch.
Okay.
And then we got a committee for the inquiry into various physical phenomena commonly called spiritualistic, with an attempt to discover their causes and general laws. So now that's the committee that's trying to find out what rules do spirits play by.
The physics of ghosts.
Yeah, physics of ghosts. And lastly, we have the library branch, the collection and collation of existing materials bearing on the history of these subjects.
That would seem like the most boring branch to work for. You're just like transcribing people's ghost stories.
Having done all this research, I could neither confirm nor deny that it would be pretty boring. They set up this society and immediately they get busy, and within the first few years of their existence, they're already exposing frauds and hoaxers.
Nice.
In 1894, a founding member, Richard Hodgson, traveled to India to investigate Russian occultist and founder of the Theosophic Society, Helena Blavatsky, and in doing so found her psychic powers to be fake. Although in 2 years later, they would then issue a statement where they revised that and said they retracted that pronouncement, oh yeah, she's probably on the level. But that might only because Theosophists and Theosophacy, it's still around, and it kind of became like a big ol' it's like a new age religion. So we might do an episode on that in the future as well. But Helena Blavatsky, she was Russian, and she exhibited sorts of psychic powers and was decided to formalize a religion based on older traditions, kind of like we talked about in The Witches, the formation of Wicca, taking these earlier beliefs.
Oh, I see. So she took earlier traditions and sort of squelched them together into a dogma.
And then added a whole bunch of psychic powers.
For good measure. Okay, yeah, that would actually be a pretty interesting topic to delve into.
And then during the years of 1886 and through 87, a series of articles published in the Journal of the Society of Psychical Research, so their own journal, exposed the medium William Eglinton's claim of slate writing. So slate writing, there's this guy, he's William Eglinton. He's a medium, one of the celebrities, a celebrity medium. And he would say that he had writing slates, which would be for schools, back before everybody had notebooks and paper.
Little chalkboards.
He would do these sittings where he would show the crowd, he'd hold up and oh look, it's a blank slate. And then he would cover it up, and then he would ask a question of a ghost, and then he would uncover it and then hold it up, and lo and behold, there would be writing on the slate that answered his question.
I'm gonna guess he wrote in chalk on the paper backwards, and then pressed it against the slate and then pulled it apart. That's how I would fake that.
That actually is probably more creative than he was.
Oh, how did he do it?
They said that somehow through sleight of hand and misdirection, he would just swap them out for slates that were already concealed that had the answers on it.
Oh, he probably had it like on a podium with a little rim, and he was able to just sort of, okay.
Or even going so far as to like write on it as he was talking and misdirecting people. He had his hand under the thing with a piece of chalk and was writing on it.
It's pretty impressive in and of itself. Yeah, a good magician can do things like that. It's amazing.
Kind of fun little tidbit. In the 20th century, this type of mediumship got an update in the 1980s with a spirit that would write messages on Polaroid film.
Oh.
Yeah, so what happened is that these people were saying that this ghost could influence the Polaroid film, and because Polaroid film came in little cartridges, the idea was like, look, it's a brand new cartridge, it can't be tampered with. But chances are they found a way to tamper with it, or they just swapped out the cartridge for one that they had tampered with. And so they would take these Polaroid pictures, and then as it would develop, as you shook it, as Outcast told us to do, which actually you should not do. Don't shake Polaroid pictures.
Oh, really? I've always shaken Polaroid pictures.
Yeah, it's actually, no, it's not good. I remember my grandparents putting it under their armpit for some reason, like the heat. Yeah.
I've never seen anyone do that, really.
But anyway, yeah, the ghost would write on these Polaroid things. So it's a similar idea and probably just as likely fake. Although people should have known better because William Eglinton had already been exposed as a fraud in other settings, such as he used to claim that he could conjure ghosts, and he would like hold these seances and then like an actual apparition would appear before them. One of them was a figure called Abdullah wearing a turban and like basically like somebody in brown face, right?
Wow. I'm gonna guess it was him.
Yeah. It was either him or like an accomplice, and how they figured that out was somebody just straight up reached over and cut a patch of like the cloth off the robe unnoticed of this ghost.
Oh, nice.
And then later they like accosted him and opened up his suitcase, and inside was not only the robe, but it had the patch cut out of it.
Perfect. Oh, excellent. I love these guys.
And another time somebody actually just reached up and ripped off his fake beard because he was wearing a big old beard.
A great big bushy beard.
That would be the riskiest way to do a seance, where you conjure a ghost that you actually it's just you or a friend dressed up. Like, boy, you're walking a tightrope there. What if somebody rips off your fake beard? That's brazen. That's amazing. People would do that.
And Eglinton actually had a relationship with Helena Blavatsky of the Theosophists. She had produced a bunch of papers that were called the Mahatma Letters, and some of the stuff that she based the religion on were these like ancient texts. And it turns out that William Eglinton and her were forging these documents and making them up.
Uh-huh.
So he was also investigated by Harry Houdini.
It's fascinating to me that this same guy, Eglinton, could be found to be a huckster over and over again. It means that word doesn't travel very fast. Or like, was he changing his name from time to time? You'd think that people, you think once your reputation is sullied by being found out to be a shyster, that you wouldn't be able to just keep going, but he kept going.
You would assume that would be the case, but her current political climate shows that's just fucking not the case.
That's a good point. I guess people have always been like that.
Several bankruptcies just show how smart of a businessman he is.
That's right. We could be talking about anybody. We're not getting political here.
In 1886, the Society published a 2-volume treatise titled Phantasms of the Living, all about visions, telepathy, and apparitions, although the work was not surprisingly received pretty negatively by the rest of the scientific community. However, the Society did employ and innovate some good techniques. They devised methodological innovations such as randomized study designs and conducted the first experiments investigating the psychology of eyewitness testimony.
Ooh.
Yes, they were actually like, well, let's do like a psychological analysis of the witness, because maybe there's some kind of inherent bias in them, or maybe they're just telling false stories.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I always thought of that as a more of a modern take, because people always see eyewitness testimony as like the most important, but you hear a lot, at least in modern times, there's been a lot of people have looked into this a lot and found how unreliable eyewitness testimony is. And it's interesting that they were looking into that long ago.
It also seems that part of that these experiments was also to see in these psychological analysis was to see if there were any inherent mechanisms for disassociation and that it would allow hypnotism. So they're still trying to, they still believe in hypnotism. They want to see, what makes it work. And so they say maybe there's something in the psychology of the individual already that makes them more susceptible.
Interesting. Hold on just a second, Cody. Kelly? Kelly? Hello? Oh, it's somebody else. Never mind.
It's a ghost! The bathroom ghost.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue where you were.
Yeah, and they would collect very large sample sizes. In one instance, over 17,000 cases. A sample size of 17,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're doing some real science. I mean, it may not be, I don't know, I say real science because it's a pseudoscience, but they are using scientific methods.
Yeah, they're doing real science on something that, as far as we know, is still not a real thing, but their approach is a scientific approach. So I would say they're doing real science, yeah.
And now we will travel forward back to the year 1920, when the worlds of Harry Price and the SPR would first collide. But first, it's time to once again dig up those sweet money bones buried by our wonderful sponsors.
Oh, money bones, money bones, money bones! Let's see what money bones we got today.
Dig for bones. Say goodbye.
Boy, those were some amazing bones. Those products and services, the metaphorical bones being dug up. Yeah, let's all go do that. Whatever we said.
So, when we last checked in with Harry Price, he had just been elected as a member of the Society for Psychical Research in 1920. Harry was enthusiastic about their goals, as you can imagine, and generously made the entire contents of his massive personal library of books on all manner of psychical and paranormal topics available to the Society. However, as the SPR was founded by very wealthy members of academic circles and the upper class, it maintained an aura of classicism that Harry had a hard time overcoming to be taken seriously.
So even when you're in, you're not quite in.
Right, and this might be why or when he started to imply that he was really from Shropshire and not Red Lion Square. In fact, one of the original founding members of the Society, Eleanor Sidgwick, that sounds like a Harry Potter name, Sidgwick.
Eleanor Sidgwick, married to Professor Flitwick.
Well, she was a mathematician and former principal of Newnham College at Cambridge, and she was the sister of the aforementioned Prime Minister Balfour. She had once said that she did not want Price on the governing council because he was, quote, not a gentleman.
Oh.
That is to say, he was not a member of the gentry or the upper class.
Wow.
And like I said before, they looked down on his academic achievements due to him studying and learning much of his technical knowledge at night school.
Mm-hmm. Classicism runs deep.
But despite this stigma, he was eager to prove himself, and he was already in his early 40s, and he really wanted to make his name in the field, and he realized that, time was moving on. And he did not fail in making a splash. In 1922, Harry Price exposed the famed spirit photographer William Hope as a fraud by cleverly marking glass plates that he supplied to Hope for a spirit photography session. So spirit photography has been a thing. And once photographs became a thing, people started taking pictures of ghosts. They still do it today, and we'll do a whole episode on spirit photography, because the interesting thing you'll note is that as each successive fraud is exposed, there suddenly the evidence shifts that, it used to be you'd see full body apparitions in these pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Then they exposed that was a fake. So then it became, now it's like shadows and different things, or orbs. So as each thing either gets exposed or explained, or as the technology develops, suddenly the manifestation of the spirits in the photographic evidence is different.
Interesting. I would imagine early on they were just doing double exposures, where you take a picture of a room and then just expose the same film to somebody in a sheet with a black background, and then superimposed on. It's like Photoshop.
And that's exactly what was going on. So Harry Price, William Hope said, I'll tell you what, you can provide me the glass plates, and that way you'll know that I didn't mess with it, right? So Harry gives him these plates, which to his inspection look like just clear plates. but Harry had secretly hidden, at one point, he had actually etched something on the glass. So when William Hope then develops the photographs and gives them back, and it shows a full-body apparition standing next to Harry Price, Harry then checks the glass and says, well, where's the etching that I hid in here? These aren't my plates. Gotcha.
Smart guy. Yeah, it's good.
A fraud can detect a fraud.
Absolutely. What is it? Not game news game.
It's send a thief to catch a thief.
There you go. Yeah. That's excellent. There's nothing more satisfying than hearing stories of frauds being found out and caught red-handed.
However, Hope was a member of a few influential spiritualist circles that had a lot of clout, and his exposure put Price on their radar. So now he's made enemies of, influential people.
All right.
At some point, Price had actually become friends or made the acquaintance of Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, yeah. He was into that stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah, and we'll talk about good old Arthur Conan Doyle some more in a future episode, because you'd think that the guy who created Sherlock Holmes,
yeah,
who was all about evidence, would actually have high thresholds for what he'd believe. No, he fell for some very obvious and blatant hoaxes.
Really?
And he would just double down and get very defensive.
I'd say I've read about half of the short stories of Sherlock Holmes, and I don't remember anything. Everything was very cut and dry and realistic. There weren't any.
Well, he wrote one of the most famous skeptical ghost stories, The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Right, and it turned out to be a fake. Yeah, so.
Right? Yeah. So exposing a fraud and a cautionary tale about people's superstitions.
Yeah, it's funny that he would fall for that kind of a thing. I think he'd be one of the last people, considering what he wrote. Interesting.
Arthur Conan Doyle was a believer in Hope, and so when Price exposed Hope as a fraud, it caused a rift, and the two never reconciled. In the exposure of Hope, Price had the help from fellow SPR member Eric Dingwall, or Ding, as he was known to his friends.
I shouldn't laugh at someone's name. That's just really funny.
Dingwall also happens to be the name of the town where that castle was, where I had my own ghost experience.
Oh, must have been his ancient relatives.
Maybe.
The ancient clan of the Dingwalls always having ghosts running throughout their family history.
Yeah, so Eric Dingwall, or Ding, he was a Cambridge graduate and a professional librarian, and also 10 years Harry Price's junior, so he's younger than him. And both men were also members of the Magic Circle, along with Harry Houdini. The Magic Circle was a club for professional magicians founded in 1905, and it's still around. Yeah, it's kind of like the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, too. There's these groups of magicians. It's a club you join, and so they'll share secrets with each other, but you're forbidden to share those secrets with anybody who's not in the Magic Circle.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
Think of it, it's like the Masonic Lodge, but for, Vegas magicians.
Yeah, nice.
Job Bluth from Arrested Development.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think he got kicked out of the Magic Circle, famously. So anyway, yeah, they were both members of the Magic Circle, and together, the two of them believed that the SPR was due for some reinvigoration. They thought that it had kind of lost its way, and it wasn't really doing any cutting-edge research by this point. I mean, it was founded in 1883, and now here we are in 1920s. So it'd been a while, and they thought, they needed a new guard. In 1922, Dingwall was appointed as the research officer of the society, and he and Price collaborated on several projects and investigations together. Famously, one of these was they reprinted a book that was critical of spiritualism. This book had been written in the late 1800s, and it showed all the fraud and the hoax behind spiritualism. But spiritualist proponents bought up every copy, including the printing plates, and destroyed them, so there could not be any copy of this book.
Ooh.
However, Harry Price, being the book collector that he was, had procured the two last extant copies of this work.
Nice. And then he reprinted them? Or they did together? Excellent.
But the process destroyed one of the copies, so he had to sacrifice one of them to make the reprinting. I guess that's just how the process worked. So one of the books was destroyed in the process, but the result was that they were able to publish this book again and start, distributing it, getting it out there. and trying to expose the fraud. And soon Price was exposing all manner of frauds, and the constant exposure to fakes disillusioned him to spiritualism as a whole.
Oh, so he's not even a believer anymore. He's seen so many frauds. Wow.
He's having his crisis of faith right now. He's starting to question the authenticity of any psychical phenomena altogether.
Harry Price in the corner, losing his religion. All right, that's enough of that.
He would overcome his crisis of faith after his good buddy Ding invited him to come with him to Munich to witness medium Willi Schneider.
Willi Schneider?
Who was a prodigy and psychic medium. And so Price went to see him and witnessed his powers, and both Dingwall and Price signed affidavits that they had witnessed genuine psychical phenomenon in the presence of Schneider. They no, we saw it, we witnessed it, it passed our smell test, thumbs up. And this reinvigorated Harry Price's passion and belief, and now he was convinced that the paranormal was real, and he was more committed than ever to getting scientific proof of it.
You can tell he wants to believe. He's the molder of this whole thing. He's got the poster up with the ghost. It says, "I want to believe." He must have been so excited to yes, my faith is restored. There is magic in the world. I kind of don't want his bubble to burst. So what happened after that?
He and Ding would have a falling out, and eventually Dingwall would become one of Price's strongest critics.
Jeez.
And would go so far as to diminish or even omit Price's involvement in later recounts of their research together. So he basically goes full-on Trotsky, erase him from history. Him and I never worked together.
Wow.
Although the actual details about why they fell out, I couldn't find anything concrete. There were a lot of different reasons, but there was one, final nail in the coffin, I couldn't find it. Shortly after witnessing Schneider and regaining his faith in psychical phenomenon, Price would investigate a British nurse named Stella Cranshaw, who claimed to have psychic abilities as well as to have experienced poltergeist activities. So somehow this case comes to his attention, but no one else knows about it. So Price decides to perform his own investigation independently of the SPR, which kind of breaks some rules. It would be the first investigation under his own control, and by doing this, he's kind of overstepping his bounds, going out of his lane, and this would later move him closer to a major split with the SPR.
Oh, so they have a rule where you're not supposed to go off by yourself conducting tests and looking into things.
It's also, he might have not been a member of that specific committee, because remember it was also all different committees.
Oh, I see. So he'd be out of his lane, like you said. That's not what he specializes in. Okay.
Proper protocol would have been, when he became aware of Stella Cranshaw, would have been to bring that to the attention of the council. They would have then, educated or figured out who's going to investigate and set parameters, and then assign somebody to the case. That's how it should have happened.
But Harry Price is a wild card.
Yes, exactly.
Who doesn't play by the rules.
He's going rogue. In 1925, after publishing articles on several apparati? I don't know.
Oh, I like apparati.
Right.
Let's go with apparati. Yeah, that's good.
So he publishes several articles on apparati of his own design in the American version of the Journal of the Society for Psychical Research, because now there's an American branch that started in America. So he publishes this not in the English Society for Psychical Research journal, but in the American one.
Ooh, he's going to make a lot of enemies. It sounds like he's being a little bit... I mean, he must know that they're going to find out about it, so it sounds like he's rubbing their face in it a little bit.
But the American Society loves his papers, or are so impressed that they actually give him the position as research officer of the American Society of Psychical Research in 1925. So they actually, promote him and give him a position.
So this sounds like maybe he's hedging his bets. He knows he might have a falling out with the British, but then he can jump into this. That's smart.
When they give him this position, the appointment is supposed to last until 1931. So it's like a 6-year appointment. And so he's so proud of this. He's finally getting the recognition he craves, that he actually puts the research officer title on any business cards or his calling card that he gives to people.
Wow.
So he's already these are my credentials. I'm getting it, right? Unfortunately, that position would shortly be abolished after financial restructuring of the American Society for Psychical Research. But that could have been politics. You know, somebody at the English branch could have been like, hey, behind the scenes. And so
yeah.
the excuse was we don't have money for that. But why would you, you're a research organization, why wouldn't you have any budget for a research officer?
Yeah, sounds a little convenient. That's interesting.
So at this point, Harry is getting fed up. And then on January 1st, 1926, Harry Price announces to the world the fruition of a year's worth of secret labor when he opens the doors to his very own National Laboratory of Psychical Research.
I'm so excited I can finally tell you guys about the secret project I've been doing for the last year.
We've done the same thing when we announced,
Actually, yeah.
right? I didn't tell my family I was doing LeastHaunted until we had the first episode aired, you know?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I kept it secret.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
It's kind of fun to do it that way. In one respect, if it doesn't work out, you won't have people asking about it.
Exactly.
And in the other, it's fun to have a surprise, like a finished product no one was expecting, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he had spent the previous year creating and purchasing new equipment out of his own pocket and securing a location for headquarters for his own rival organization to the SPR. And whether he knew it or intended it or not, although I think he did, this would be the opening salvo in what would prove to be the psychic Cold War for supremacy and exclusivity in the field of paranormal research, to be fought in the press, the court of public opinion, and in haunted houses and seance parlors all over the United Kingdom and beyond.
All right. My favorite part of all of that is now I learned the word salvo. I never heard that word before, but in context, I think I get what it means, and I love it. I'm going to have to make that part of my vocabulary. So now a Cold War is a brewing. Now, is he established in the States?
No, he did this in London. In fact, I think he did it like just down the street from them.
Oh, jeez. Okay. And he's got enough backing. Is he going to present a real threat to this established?
Well, at its height, his national laboratory would have about 800 members.
Wow.
But, you know, their membership ranked in the hundreds as well.
Boy, I'm really rooting for him. Maybe just because of the way you've been presenting this whole story, but oh man, stick it to the man. Go, he's going out on his own. I love it.
Yeah, basically he's like, look, yeah, they looked down on me for too long. I deserve respect.
I'm gonna start my own Psychic Research Institute with blackjack and hookers. Interesting. So I wonder what's gonna come of that. We have a Cold War going now.
So his lifelong studying of magicians and frauds had given Price a flair and a taste for the dramatic. He understood that half of the battle for the acceptance of the existence of psychical phenomenon and the legitimacy of its research would be fought and won in the court of public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So by conducting his investigations in what some critics at the SPR called a, quote, vaudeville atmosphere, he was able to build his own reputation to the extent that he was never in any want of cases to investigate. People were practically banging down his door with cases and experiences for him to examine and to give his ruling on.
There it is. Wow.
So he's like, I'll take no case too big or too small. And in doing so, he's like, no, my cup runneth over. I have my pick.
Well, yeah, and he knows how to present it and to sell himself. So yeah, the more the better. That just builds up his reputation, the popular opinion. And really, like he said, he's right. It's a court of public opinion. Whoever gets the most notoriety will attain legitimacy. That's like the one criteria. He knows how to do it.
And another reason to be so high profile is that any case that he could then prove as a fraud in public would further educate the public as to what to look for to identify hoaxes on their own. And by doing that, then the cases that would be coming in from the public would be held to higher scrutiny, so it already would filter out hoaxes on its own.
That's great, yeah, and he's adding value to, making people be more critical thinkers, so, yeah, it's excellent.
In his own way, he's promoting critical thinking. Whether or not it was altruistic like that or not.
Well, it's good business either way, because that's, I'm sure, how it's presented. Like, oh, this guy is legit, and he'll show you how to spot a fake yourself. Like, that would be really good in helping to foster trust in the public.
So the result of this was that Harry Price would accept and investigate a much wider swath of types of cases than the SPR would. His willingness to do so gave his rivals at the SPR more ammunition to use against him. They would say, like, why should anyone trust Harry Price? He believes in talking mongooses. So he starts taking on these really high-profile cases. And in 1927, he announces to the world that he has procured an artifact known as Joanna Southcott's box.
Joanna Southcott's box.
Yes, Joanna Southcott's box. Okay, so Joanna Southcote, she was a religious prophet, is what she was. Think like, this is almost like British Mormonism, if you want to make a comparison.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Somebody like deciding to do a shakeup in the church and come up with their own thing, because she was originally a member of the Church of England. And then through time, she gets involved with a few other kind of like reformist movements or new sects. And at some point, she becomes convinced that she herself has holy psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
So she would start producing almost like Nostradamus-type prophecies, but she would write them all in rhyme. So she was like one part like Nostradamus, another part Dr. Seuss rapper.
Do you have any examples of her poems?
I will find one and plug it in, because I was
yeah.
looking for some. Yeah, that's one of the things I was looking for. And she would also declare herself to the world as the woman of the apocalypse, who was spoken in a prophetic message in the book of Revelation. And then she approaches a London engraver named William Sharp, and they start producing and selling paper seals of the Lord, which were like these, holy relics at prices varying from 12 shillings to a guinea each. And these were supposed to ensure the holders of these seals a guaranteed place amongst the 144,000 people who would get eternal life after the apocalypse.
She's selling indulgences?
Pretty much.
Wow.
It's kind of like how Jehovah's Witnesses believe that only a certain amount of people are actually going to get into paradise.
Oh, is that a thing? I didn't know that was part of their thing.
Yeah, so part of it is that, only 100,000 are guaranteed a place in heaven. Everybody else has to wait in paradise, which is like heaven, just not as nice.
I mean, that sounds nice. They probably should have not be calling it paradise if it's not as good as heaven.
And I've always wondered right away, I'm like, okay, but surely your 100,000 quota has been reached by now. Why are you still proselytizing? There's no chance I'm going to be one of those people.
Yeah, can you bump one of those people out of their spot if you were just that much better? Yeah, I wonder how that works.
So Joanna solves that issue by saying, no, you have you purchase a guaranteed spot. You buy your place in line to get into heaven. At the age of 64, she announced to the world that she was pregnant with the Messiah.
Oh boy, how did that go? 64.
And she actually gave she prophesized the date of birth as being October 19th, 1814. But then that date arrived and no baby came. And then she died in December of that year. So. And her followers refused to let her body be buried because they believed that she was going to resurrect like the Christ.
Wow.
And they only agreed to allow her to be buried after she started to rot and smell.
Any day now. No. Just wait a few more hours.
However, the whole Southcottian movement did not end with her. In fact, I believe there still are people who believe that her prophecies are going to come true because she sealed a wooden box full of prophecies. Remember, I put your prophecy in my little box earlier in the episode.
That's right. Yes.
So she had a box that she had put prophecies in, and she gave the instruction that it should only be opened at a time of national crisis, and then only in the presence of all 24 bishops of the Church of England, because there were only 24 bishops at the time. There's more now, but at that time there were only 24.
Would any of those bishops even give her the time of day, though? I mean, you have to get all these guys in the same room, and she had been a reformist, so why would they even...
In fact, a lot of her writings were labeled as blasphemous, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious about how specific her prophecies were, or if they were vague enough that...
Yeah. So after that point, there were several attempts to persuade the episcopate, I guess, which is the governing body who she entrusted the box to with the instructions. They asked him to open it during the Crimean War, again during the First World War, and then they never got a chance to ask during World War II because in 1927 Harry Price got his hands on her box.
He did? How did he get it? Was it like an Indiana Jones style switcheroo where he had to break in? How did he get that?
From his account, they just gave it to him. Somebody gave it to him. So we have to question, is it the real box? Some people, question whether it was the real box.
Yeah, that sounds like his claims earlier on in his life where, I just found this Roman coin.
But he opens the box amongst much fanfare and, media hype and reveals that all that is in it was a few oddments and unimportant papers, including a lottery ticket and a horse pistol, a gun.
This is the Geraldo Rivera opening up the, what, that gangster, what was it?
Al Capone's vault.
Yeah, Al Capone's vault. There was this huge thing, and, like, there's nothing in there.
I prefer the time when UHF Channel 62 opened Al Capone's glove box.
The world watched in amazement as he unlocked the mysteries of Al Capone's glove compartment.
Aha! Road maps!
I don't remember that one. Oh, I've got a bone up on my Weird Al.
So yeah, he opens the box, goes that there was nothing in it, but then a lot of people claimed that it was not the true box. In fact, many loyal South Koreans claimed that the box opened in 1927 was not the authentic one, and continued to press that the true box would be opened.
One day, when someone of pure spirit can pull the sword out of the stone and open the box.
Yeah, well, flash forward to the 1960s and 70s, they took out ads in the Sunday Express and put up billboards that were demanding for the box to be opened. And they even had a society. They had a society for the South Korean society, and they had a slogan which was, quote, "War, disease, crime, and banditry, distress of nations and perplexity will increase until the bishops open Joanna Southcote's box." According to the society, they have the true box. It's in their possession in a secret location for safekeeping, and its whereabouts will only be revealed when the bishops agree to meet and to look into the box.
I mean, if I were a bishop, I'd be like, oh, come on, guys, let's all get together. This will be fun. Like, this has been going on for 100 years now, more than that.
Yeah, and I would argue that whatever's in the box is probably not true, because she also said that the Day of Judgment was going to happen in the year 2004, yet here we are.
Oh.
I'm begging for judgment. When, Lord, when? Make it end. So yeah, that was the famous case of Joanna Southcote's box. Following year, in 1928, he investigated something called the Battersea Poltergeist in the south of London, where a husband and wife said their house was haunted by a poltergeist. He investigated it and did find evidence, although people noted that the evidence only seemed to occur when Harry Price was there. And so again, there's accusations that, he hoaxed the whole thing.
That's the trick when you go out on your own. Like, did you ever bring people with him that could be a second eyewitness?
He did.
I feel like that's a big hole.
He had other members of his national laboratory and students.
But if they're working for him, they're not really it's not really peer reviewed, so to speak, or whatever.
Yeah, and indeed it seems that he began to walk a fine line between genuine scientific inquiry and pure showmanship. This strange dichotomy and balancing act would, in the end, harm his reputation more than it would help. And one notable case that would serve to harm his reputation was the Brocken experiment of 1932.
What's the Brocken experiment of 1932, Cody?
I'm glad you asked. So, in 1932, Price traveled to Brocken in the Harz Mountains of Germany. Brocken is also known as Blocksberg, and it's the highest peak in northern Germany at 1,141 meters, or 3,743 feet tall. Just a little taller than Loma Prieta.
Oh, okay.
But for that part of Germany, it's tall. He was there to take part in the centennial celebrations around the death of German poet Goethe. Goethe.
Is this Goethe? Or is that a different dude?
The guy who wrote Faust.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking of somebody else.
I think it's Goethe. It's Goethe, because in German, the TH is a hard T. There is no th. It's T.
Oh, really?
Anyway, that guy.
Would my name be Garth?
Yeah, it'd be Gart.
Whoa.
Which makes sense that Bartholomew is shortened to Bart.
Oh, it does. Not Barth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, as part of the celebrations, Harry Price proposed to perform what was called the Blocksberg Tryst.
We now welcome you to Jackrabbit Slim's Blocksberg Tryst contest. Oh no, okay. It's not twist, it's tryst. What's the Blocksberg Tryst, Cody?
The Blocksberg Tryst was a magical ritual that Price found inside a manuscript that had been obtained the previous year by the National Laboratory of Psychical Research. I'm going to quote from his autobiography, or one of them, Confessions of a Ghost Hunter.
He actually wrote a book called Confessions of a Ghost Hunter?
Quote, in the autumn of 1931, I acquired a manuscript, which is an early 19th century transcript of a page of the so-called High German Black Book, a handwritten volume of magical formulae which is preserved in one of the German museums. The Black Book dates from about the 15th century and contains much ritual for the practice of transcendental magic, and amongst the experiments is one called the Blocksberg Tryst. In 1932 was celebrated throughout Germany the centenary of the immortal poet Goethe. The Harz Goethe Centenary Committee, hearing that I possessed a copy of the ritual of the Blocksberg Tryst, invited me to reproduce the experiment as part of the Goethe-Jahre celebrations. I consented. Another reason why I decided to go, quite unofficially, was that I wished to emphasize the absolute futility of ancient magical ritual under 20th century conditions. End quote.
So he's doing this as a skeptic to disprove this old thing.
Yeah, and the reason why they wanted him to do this at the specific location is that Blocksberg, or Brocken as it was later known, is the mountain that is key to the Faust myth in Goethe's writing. It's where the ritual happens, where he conjures the devil.
Oh, okay.
It already has this connotation. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be great, like, to celebrate this thing if we actually did a ritual?
I'm actually not familiar with Faust, so I didn't know that was a thing. So they're going to recreate something that was written in Faust?
Not exactly, because in Faust he's conjuring the devil. The Blocksberg Tryst is a little bit different. So, the ritual of the Tryst, it's a ritual that, if performed correctly under specific conditions and in the right location, would allow the practitioner to transform a, quote, pure virgin goat, or a, quote, he-goat, into a beautiful human youth.
Okay.
Basically, how to turn your goat lover into a human so you can avoid the negative stigma of banging a goat.
Yeah, that's exactly what that sounded like to me. I don't think you went out on a stretch in your translation of that. That's exactly what it sounds like.
Damn, that goat's sexy, but I can't, pursue a relationship with it. But if it were only a human...
Hey, there's a goat over here! Hello, Mr. Goat. You're very handsome, aren't you? Have we met before?
I can see why that was such a popular story. There's a lot of goat lovers out there who are like, oh, finally a magic ritual for the rest of us!
Finally, a magic ritual for me. So, Harry Price procured all the components, including the usual stuff, bat's blood, pine branches, scrapings from the inside of a church bell, incense, a maiden pure of heart, and the all-important goat.
A goat? Your shepherd will be wondering where the hell you are.
And arriving at the spot of the celebrations in Brocken, he found that a magic circle mosaic had been laid down on the ground outside of the visitor center, because the mountain is, after all, still a tourist destination.
Is that the place you're supposed to do it? You just do it right there?
Well, the ritual specified that it needed to take place next to a stone altar in a magic circle that contained a triangle, and all that really matters, the points of the triangle need to be aligned with key locations. And these locations seem to be sites that were traditionally associated with witches, orgies, and covens.
Uh-huh.
So, he showed up during daylight hours and set about performing a rehearsal of the ritual under the watchful cameras and flashbulbs of about 40 reporters. The reporters watched the rehearsal and mistakenly believed they were witnessing the real ritual. They were, needless to say, underwhelmed when the goat failed to transform.
What kind of goat sorcery is this?
Back to the confessions of a ghost hunter. Quote, the real experiment was on Saturday, June 18th, 1932, and fortunately, the pressmen and photographers had departed to their respective offices and dark rooms, and we were left in peace. But the moon again deserted us. A few silvery gleams between the clouds earlier in the evening raised our hopes, but by midnight the mountain top was enveloped in a mist, and the first essential, according to the ritual, to the success of the experiment was absent. I had to point this out to the large crowd which had assembled on the Brocken. I emphasized the fact that as the moon was absent, it was rather absurd to make the experiment, but I was persuaded to proceed with the test, as so many persons had come to do homage to Goethe and his associations with the Brocken, and did not want to be disappointed. Still hoping that the moon would appear at the psychological moment, we proceeded with the tryst. And this time, everything went well, and there was no hitch. The spectators were intensely interested, and you could have heard the proverbial pin fall during the performance of the ritual. Again, quoting the morning newspapers, quote, the goat remained a goat, end quote.
It's the bloody goat. Naughty goat.
The takeaway, the goat remained a goat in last night's tryst.
Headline, goat stays goat.
One goat enters, one goat leaves.
British paramour's hope of goat lover squandered.
Good luck next time. We hope the moon comes out.
He also said that, quote, although our principal object in staging the Bloxburg Tryst was to ridicule the idea that magic ritual under modern conditions is still potent, we are not so foolish as to imagine that we have entirely succeeded. Superstition is not so easily killed as that, but the experiment was worth reproducing, as the investigation of such things is perfectly legitimate when carried out in a scientific manner, and I consider the result of our test has advanced us a stage in our knowledge of ancient magic ritual.
Did they try it the next night when the moon came to see if the moon would come out? Because that seems like an obvious...
Yeah, no, they didn't. Although, the press ate this up. The press loves Harry Price because anything he's involved with is guaranteed to generate newspaper sales. The farce of the Brockett experiment would be waved about by Harry Price's critics as further evidence of his lack of credibility, however, but worse was to come. So, at this point, I'm going to pause, and so Garth, what are you thinking of this Harry Price story so far?
Oh, I'm enjoying this so far. This is great. He's like, well, especially his sort of relationship with the media and how he knows how to play it.
Yeah.
And even bad publicity being good publicity, and the fact that they're all into anything he does because they know it'll generate like there's a lot of components here that are very applicable to modern times, and it's fascinating to hear about something like this.
Yeah, and you know that as all this is going on, the people over at the SPR are just like grinding their teeth and getting just...
Oh yeah, because he's getting all the publicity, and they feel they're this old respected institution. They think they respect themselves, but they're not getting any of the excitement.
It seems that he's getting first scoop on like all sorts of paranormal things, where people are coming to him, and then only after he's done do they approach the SPR. So they're getting ever more reason to try and destroy him and try to undercut him. So, in 1929, Price arranged for the younger brother of Willi Schneider, the medium that he'd witnessed in Munich years before, his younger brother Rudy, to come to England, because Rudy had exhibited all the signs of being a medium and having psychic powers to rival those of his older brother.
Oh, what powers, Cody?
The powers of telekinesis, conjuring partial materializations, and summoning cool breezes. Rudy Schneider was an airbender.
An airbender?
You're an airbender. Sure am.
Price felt that since he had been the one to bring Rudy to England at great personal expense, he made these arrangements and, greased the wheels for, this is 20s, so the Nazis are rising to power in Germany at this point, or getting close to it. We're on the cusp. He is, so it's kind of quite a feat to get somebody access to come in for this investigation. So because he does all this, he almost treats it as if Rudy is property of the National Laboratory and that they have exclusive right to investigate him. Also at this time, in 1929, Price publicly offers a prize of 1,000 pounds to anybody who could duplicate Rudy's powers under strict scientific conditions, or who could show how it'd be a hoax.
Calling all airbenders, we want to test you, and we'll give you this much if you turn out to be legit.
But the joke's on him, because there's only one airbender. He's the last one.
Well, no one has seen an airbender in 100 years. We thought they were extinct.
He makes this announcement of a prize. Anybody who can duplicate these and prove that they're not real will win 1,000 pounds. This is similar to currently the amazing Randy, who is like our modern Harry Price skeptic. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Sounds vaguely familiar. I'm not aware of him really, though. What?
He's a magician who has dedicated his life to exposing frauds and hoaxes, and he has I think it's $1 million prize to anybody that can show him actual inconclusive evidence of psychic ability, and the prize has never been claimed.
Cool.
So it's kind of like a precursor to that.
Nice.
However, Price starts to notice through each consecutive experiment that Rudy's powers are seeming to fade and diminish. And in one experiment using an automatic camera, he captures a photograph of Rudy seemingly using his hands to manipulate an object. Yeah, they set up this experiment where his hands were bound, so it was like, oh, he can't move anything. And then when the photo was snapped, it captured a moment that showed that Rudy's hand was actually free, so he could have been moving things with his hands. Although Price would eventually publish this photograph in a book detailing his investigation to Schneider, initially he did not announced that he had gotten this evidence because of the obvious harm it would do to his own research. Although some people say that the fact that he eventually did publish the picture and the story showed that he was committed to being fair and non-partial, but there was an ulterior motive because before he could conclude his investigation, Price became aware that he had traitors in his organization.
There's saboteurs amongst us. Oh no.
2 members of his laboratory and close confidants of his, Lord Charles Hope and Lord Raleigh, had secretly made a deal with the SPR that once Price was finished with his investigation, they would personally deliver Rudy Schneider to the SPR so they could do their own investigation. It was possibly because of this betrayal, which hurt Price personally. I mean, these were his friends. And also since he'd put so much resources into bringing Rudy to England and he felt, like that he kind of owned him. So this might have been why he actually waited to make the announcement that he had evidence of Rudy's fraud until the SPR had conducted their own investigation and he got the heads up that they were about to publish their findings when he leaked the story to the newspaper and thus undercut their announcement. He's like, nope.
Yeah, that was the best he could do in that situation. Oh, the betrayal. Oh.
And also at that point, nobody else knew that he had this evidence. So he kept it secret, and then when he finds out they're about to make their announcement, he beats them to the punch and says he's a fraud. I had the evidence all along.
Yeah, of course. I would do the same thing. Yeah.
This attempt to pull a fast one, however, backfires severely on Harry, and several members of the board of the National Laboratory resign in protest, specifically because, why did you withhold this information from us? We're members of your board.
Because he was doing it secretly. Okay.
And at this point, public perception of Price shifts. Many mediums and people who had been willing to work with Price, now they no longer want to work with him because they feel he can't be trusted. He's no longer impartial.
They're upset because he had been withholding information that they expected him to have released by then. And the only reason he released it was because he wanted to get the jump on these other guys.
He had proof that this person was a fraud or was hoaxing their psychic ability.
And they would have expected him to release that right away and not sit on it. So why was he sitting on it?
Before he could even make a decision about it, he found out about the betrayal. Members of his own organization were going to then hand off this psychic to the SPR for their own investigation in secret. So he finds out they're going to do this. So he could blow the whistle right now and expose them as a fraud, and in doing so, prevent them from doing their thing. But instead, he lets it go, so it kind of wastes their resources, wastes their time. And then when he finds out that they're ready to publish and reveal their results, he then exposes the fraud himself.
And they're like, hey, you could have saved us time. You were just letting us waste our time because we're, enemies. Okay.
And if you were truly committed to the science, you would have revealed that out of principle right away.
Okay, that makes sense. So the reason he was sitting on it was a self-serving thing. Okay.
Yeah, so then that sways public opinion against him. A lot of people who wanted to work with him now don't. And, also members of his board resigned. Like, dude, you were mad at these people for keeping a secret from you. You kept the secret from us.
Right.
The betrayal.
Yep, you blew it. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
As a result of this negative publicity, the lack of people coming forward to place faith in him or to work with him, in 1934, Price dissolves the National Laboratory of Psychical Research and transfers all of its equipment and resources to the University of London, which starts its own group, the University of London Council for Psychical Research, which will remain open for another 5 years. But at this point, it seems that he has lost the war, and SPR are the victors.
It was that one thing that got him. Wow.
Because they're still around. His thing isn't.
Mm-hmm. It sure seems like the story's over.
However, the war is not over.
Ah.
It was not enough for the SPR to seemingly win. Now they needed to destroy any vestiges of the research and progress in the field that Harry Price and the National Laboratory had achieved. They're going scorched earth.
Jeez.
Yeah, they want to destroy his reputation. He dies in 1948.
Oh, so he's going to die in a couple of years after this will dissolved.
Yeah, he's getting close to, he's already older, and so he's getting close to the end of his life, and it seems his whole life, all he wanted was just recognition of his genius, right? He wanted to be appreciated. And then he gets it, and then again, fly too close to the sun.
Yeah, his hubris got the better of him, and he should have done the right thing for the science, but he let his own ego get in the way.
He has other achievements too. He's a founding member of the British Film Board, but we'll get into that some other point. However, so yeah, the war's not over. They want to destroy his reputation and discredit every investigation he's done. And part of this, for a few years, they have been trying to pick apart and discredit a specific investigation that Harry Price had done. It was one of his crown jewels of research. It was his investigation and report regarding what at one time was called the most haunted house in all of England. But that story will have to wait, because this is our first ever to be continued.
Oh!
Yes.
Oh my god. Alright, so we have to wait 2 weeks to get the conclusion? Will Riker, he just saw Locutus.
I am Locutus, a Borg.
And he gives the order.
Mr. Worf. Fire.
To be concluded. Oh. When we return, we'll be learning about the most haunted house in England.
We'll do a Comic-Con leak here, and I will give the title. I mean, people are going to go and do their own research, but I hope that, you also tune in to hear this exciting conclusion. In 2 weeks, come back. Psychic Wars, Episode 2, The Battle of Borley.
All right. Well, everybody's going to have to tune in again. This is good. I like this two-parter thing. I can see why you couldn't fit it all into one. This is such a broad and extensive topic. Damn.
Even all this information we just gone through, I still had to omit cases that he did. There's so many interesting things. There's a lot of crossover. So even though after the conclusion of next week's episode, I don't believe we have seen the last of Harry Price. I think he will make appearances.
It seems like he'll crop up in a lot of other stories. Like, I'm sure when we do Houdini or when we do any number of other people from that era and that place in the world, we'll see him appear. Cool.
People you don't need to wait 2 weeks to get your full fix of LeastHaunted.
That's right.
Tune into our YouTube channel next Friday to get the latest installment of our other alternate weekly. How will we phrase that?
Or in between bi-weekly.
Anyway, the point is we have
our bi-tweekly.
We have the LeastHaunted Campfire Club, which happens on any Friday when there is not an original LeastHaunted episode. You can go to our YouTube channel and experience fun, original, and classic ghost stories, all presented in front of an authentic campfire.
We'll all be reading them. I think I'll read a couple. Cody will read some. We might get some other people too, and you can enjoy the story and plug in your any way you can to get YouTube on your TV and look at the campfire while you hear someone tell a ghost story. So, since we're all more or less still stuck at home to some degree, it'll be nice to have that. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a cool idea.
And as always, like and subscribe to LeastHaunted in any place you find it. Rate and review on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. See you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yep. See you in a couple of weeks for the conclusion of Psychic Wars.
Bum, bum, bum.